You're the one can't look away.
Well, he was right. I definitely couldn't look away. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It has been quite a while since I've last been active here on the channel. Last time I was active mostly was when I was streaming live playing video games such as Pacify or Marvel Rivals, but the last time I did a in front of the camera video or anything like that was 8 months ago when I did my review of the 2025 Wolfman remake. And I feel like that and since then I've been really busy with my personal life, with my job and everything, so I really haven't had the time to want to do a in front of the camera music or any sort of video. So with that being said, I finally got the chance to check out the newest season of Monster, the Ed Gein story. We had Jeffrey Dahmer, then we had the Mendez, I believe that's what it's called, and now we are here with Ed Gein. Some of these killers, they took their real life inspiration and made them into movies. Ed Gein is one of those films like Psycho, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Maniac, The Silence of the Lambs. All of those took heavy inspiration from Ed Gein and his crime and story. So when I heard that Ryan Murphy, the writer, director, and the worker of the Monster shows, was going to be doing a story of Ed Gein, I was over the moon. And then they got Charlie Hunnam to play Ed Gein himself. And once the teaser dropped, it looked interesting. Then the official trailer dropped, and I was over the moon excited. Like, I'm thinking, this is going to be phenomenal. This is going to be a masterpiece. Charlie Hunnam is going to get an Emmy for his performance.
I just feel like I'm a puzzle, and none of the pieces fit.
The show comes out. I finally get the chance to watch it. I've actually watched it twice already. So with that being said, overall, I enjoyed the show. But if you're someone like me who wanted a really faithful adaptation of Ed Gein's story, this is not what you're going to be looking for.
You're working too fast.
I'm sorry, Mother.
So I'm going to start in a couple things of things I did like about the show. So we're going to start off with the positives. So the first positive is Charlie Hunnam. The dude absolutely carries the show as Ed Gein. Now, here's the thing. There's one thing about the character that he does differently that's different from the real-life Ed Gein, and that's the voice. In real life, the real Ed Gein didn't have that childlike voice. You know, he always had these social skill issues that were like when he communicated, he would talk slow, he would fumble his words.
Said, "Can you roller skate?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, I think they have so many goals they to hold me up because I never roller skate. I could be there."
And they do that in the show very well, but in terms of like the hype, the squeaky voice, I didn't mean nothing by it. I just want to welcome to a town, that's all. That the real Ed Gein never spoke like that. So I'm not saying that it's bad. Like, I think it does add something to the character. Although I've seen plenty of people on social media saying like the voice is just too silly. They can't take it seriously. That's fair. That's completely fair. It's not going to be for everybody. Everyone's going to think it works. Some people won't care. Some people just can't get into it because of the voice. And that's reasonable. When the show itself does focus on his story, like his relationship with his mother, her passing, Ed Gein robbing the graves, taking people's body parts, the skin, killing the two victims, when all of that starts to happen, it is some engaging but also disturbing stuff you're going to see in the show. Because, like I said, I've done all research to get prepped for the show. So I'm actually going to backtrack for a second. I watched like 10 different documentaries on Ed Gein because I wanted to get every story to see how much of this show is going to keep accurate, how much changes they're going to make, and overall how will it blend in. I would say loosely, for the most part, they do keep faithful to his story. They really do. But in terms of like how connected to it though, there are a lot of changes that they did make. And I think that they did it with the Dahmer show, I've heard. They did it with the Mendes show. So it's no surprise they did it with Ed Gein as well. I had a feeling like in episode 2, he has a vision where like he sees Jewish prisoners like running through his backyard. Like, obviously, I don't think that ever happened in real life with Ed Gein envisioned this. So, I mean, he could have envisioned this, but we don't know. But yeah, so there's a lot of things they did add in that I think were interesting. There's a couple things they did add that I didn't think really added much to the story, or I felt like they were just unnecessary. I will say another positive I will give this is some of the other side characters. Like, I think I can't remember her name at the top of my head, the girlfriend of Ed Gein. At first I watched it, I really didn't like how much the show paid attention to her until I did more research and found out that this actually was an individual who claimed that she had a 20-year relationship with Ed Gein. So when I looked back at it after learning this, it kind of made me appreciate more. Obviously, the character is very different. In the show, she's like a photographer, wants to become a big-time photographer, and that was never the character at all. So it was nice. I really liked it. I thought it was some nice additions they added that when I look back at it a second time, I appreciate it more the second time than I did the first time. When it comes to adding it, like connecting it to the inspiration of Psycho, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lambs, that is where I am personally mixed on. Because for like episode 2, they actually bring it, like, so they actually have it jump forward to the 1950s to where Alfred Hitchcock is talking to the writer of Psycho, because, you know, Psycho was a book before it got published into a movie, or got adapted into a movie. I think my one critique I have is they focus on that way too long. Like, I understand the idea is that they want to show us how Ed Gein's actions inspired these films. I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre handled it the best out of them all, because it focused on it enough, but not too much. Silence of the Lamb, they hardly focused it. You get the one iconic scene of Buffalo Bill dressing himself up and dancing in front of the mirror. And then when it comes to Psycho, they focused on that. It feels like for eternity. Like, way too long. When it comes to wrapping up the show, I think the one thing the show did interesting is it made us sympathize with Ed Gein, because you look at his crimes and you know that it was horrific. What he did was unimaginable. What he did was unforgettable. But at the end of the day, too, he was still a damaged person because of the childhood he had, because the way his mother raised him, how he wasn't allowed to have friends, he wasn't allowed to date girls. She basically was like worshipped or looked at like she was above everybody else. Like, she saw all women as like prostitutes, as like sins or anything like that. So Ed Gein really had a traumatic childhood and didn't have an ordinary life. So when his mother passed, that's what drove him to finally committing these crimes. So in the show, by the time he does reach his lung cancer illness and finally does pass away, it is sympathy, because while you do know that the crimes he committed were absolutely horrible, you understand, because of the damaged mind and state he was in, you understand, like, you still feel some sympathy for Ed Gein. And I think the show handled it very well, because by the end of the show, before he was finally gone, I generally was like holding back tears. And if I'm someone who doesn't really cry that much or get teary-eyed that much when I'm watching a movie or show, so for something to do that, it means that they did something right. So I applaud them that they found a way to tell his story, but to make him feel sympathy without taking it away overall. But let's get into a couple of things that I really didn't like about the show. And that for me is, I feel like there's way too much subplots, way too many characters that are just put into this. And it's like, I feel like a lot of these just don't really add much to the story or like the whole series, that it kind of makes me think this should have been a movie. Not a show, a movie. I really feel like if they trimmed down the stuff with the Russian woman, they trimmed down the stuff about the telling of Psycho, like how that got made, I really feel like this could have worked as maybe a 2-hour Netflix movie. I don't think it needed to be stretched out into an 8-episode series, because there's so many times that they're telling the story about this Russian lady, or not Russian, Jesus, this German woman, my bad, I'm so sorry for saying Russian, I meant German. This German woman who committed these crimes that inspired Ed Gein, the story of Psycho, the Ed Gein's girlfriend, like, all of these got focused on. And then, like, I want to say, like, episodes 7 and 8, they focused on, like, other criminals that supposedly got inspired by Ed Gein. I feel like all of these just dragged out way too much. They should have all been trimmed down, or they could have been cut completely and not affect anything. And I feel like a lot of these just felt like filler. Like, Ryan Murphy was writing the story and was like, man, this is like only 4 episodes, 6 episodes long. I got to add more stuff in to pad this out to 8 episodes. Let's just do this and this and that and this and that. And I think a lot of it just did not really click with me on both viewings. Like I said, like the stuff with the German woman, I liked it a little bit more in the second viewing, but there's still a lot of stuff I didn't really care for, especially like showing all the criminals that were inspired by Ed Gein and all that sort of like all that towards like the end of the show. I feel like they just dragged it out, and it's like I'm kind of just looking at the time like, okay, when is this gonna be it? When are they gonna wrap this up? When's Ed Gein gonna get diagnosed with his lung cancer? When is he gonna pass? When's it gonna be over? Because all the other stuff they're trying to tell, I just didn't find that interesting. I really did not find it that engaging. So I think the main issue I have with the show is that it felt like this could have been a 2-hour movie instead of a 8-episode series. That's just me though. I don't know how anyone else feels about that, but it could be just me. I feel like the other issue I really have is they really rushed through like what led Ed Gein to doing what he does. Like there's so much story to be told with his childhood, with him moving to Plainfield and all that sort. And it's like by the time we get into the show, like episode 1, his brother dies, his mother has the 2 strokes, she's gone, and then in episode 1 towards the end, Ed Gein is, I think it's actually episode 2 if I remember correctly, he's already robbing the graves. And I think it's episode 3, he already has a face mask. And I really feel like the show could have told more and build up to that more, but it feels like the first 2 episodes, they just wanted to get to the good stuff. Like, oh, he's already got the skulls that he uses as bowls, he's already got the woman bodysuit, he's already got the woman face mask, and it's like, I feel like they rushed through it a lot, especially because, like, the actress who plays his mother, I can't remember her name, I know she was
Billy's mother
in Scream 2, but I feel like I wanted to see more of that. And I think another issue I do have with the show as well is I don't feel like Ed Gein had such a good connection with his mother, because since in this version, he's got a girlfriend, he's constantly yelling at the spirit of his mother 24/7, he's willing to date this woman. It doesn't fit with the real life story of Ed Gein, because in real life, the idea was that he was basically so asphyxiated with his mother that he was so in love with her that when she passed, that's what caused him to do all the stuff that he did. So for them to constantly say like, oh, he's got this girlfriend, he's always yelling at his mother, he doesn't want to take her abuse anymore, it's like it doesn't feel like it works for his transformation into finally robbing the graves, taking the skin, and like doing what he did with his house. And I feel like it's some things that's like that could have been altered. I feel like they should have just stuck with the story that's like maybe I think the girlfriend's name is Adeline. If I remember correctly, I could be right, could be wrong, but let's just say Adeline. So, like, there could be ideas like she wanted to be with Ed, but because he was so asphyxiated with his mother, he just refused to date her. And they didn't go with that route. They really didn't, and I just think it kind of hurt the whole purpose of what the person was supposed to be about. So, that was one of the transformations, one of the changes they did that I didn't think worked. Because now, when you look at it from that point, it doesn't work as like, oh, I can totally see why he went mad and started doing all this. Like, you look at the real life story, it really sounded like he was in love with his mother. That when she passed away, he was like so traumatized by it. He's like, okay, I can't take it anymore. I gotta bring her back. That's why he robbed the graves. He killed 2 people that looked like his mother. And in this version, it's like, I don't feel like he completely misses her. Like, I really don't see it that way. And overall, it's just some things I feel like that, you know what, maybe they should have just stuck with the story and just say, you know what, he really was that into his mom that when she died, he went nuts. I just think the way they did it in the show, I think it was just poorly handled. Overall, I would say this was still fairly entertaining. As someone who is very fascinated with his story, I do like the change. I do like some of the changes they made. I think overall it was entertaining. Like I said, I watched it twice already, so it did something right that maybe go back to rewatch it. But if you're someone like me that really wanted a more accurate story of Ed Gein, this is not it. They made a lot of changes. It really is like the fact versus the fiction of his story. And it feels like Ryan Murphy added in a lot of stuff that's like I don't think needed to be there. But overall, I still thought it was fairly entertaining. And now they confirmed they're doing season 4. I'll definitely be checking it out. Like I said, now that I watched this, I'm already watching the Jeffrey Dahmer show. It's good so far. So when I'm done with that, I'm going to watch the Mendes season. And then hopefully by 2026, we get the 4th season of Monster. And see what they bring us in the future. But overall, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the bell to be notified on latest content. I will try to be getting into more reviews relatively soon, so if there is any shows or movies you would like me to tackle, feel free to leave some suggestions in the comments below. Otherwise, guys, that's it for today's video, and I will see you all very soon.